Hello, and welcome to Champion Your Culture, the podcast where we dive deep into the heart of leadership and organizational culture. I'm Ryan McCarty.
And I'm George Rogers. Together, we're here to guide you on a journey of personal and professional growth. Every week, we bring you insights, stories, and strategies to help you and your company thrive in today's dynamic world.
So whether you're leading a team, running a business, or just eager to make a positive impact, you are in the right place. Let's jump right into today's show and champion a culture of purpose and passion. Welcome to Champion Your Culture. All right, so we're back.
Back again.
And we've got a friend.
We brought a friend.
Darrian Mikell, CEO Qualifi, here with us on Champion Your Culture, the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
it's pretty
thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you all for joining us as well. This is going to be a cool episode.
I'm excited about this episode. I've been trying to search and find this guy for over a year. I met some of his team last year at Unleash Conference, and just a great bunch of young men, and had a good product as well at the booth and vendor. So, and then I moved back home.
Yeah,
and it's home for him too. And I've still been searching for him. But have no fear, Qualifi is here.
Just talk to this guy.
There's in the house.
Well, that was what was funny. Was we were talking earlier that George went to Unleash last year. Yeah. Were you speaking there?
Last year. Last year.
And then this year you're doing
this year I'm hosting the main stage. So I get to host the main stage. Nice. Got some great speakers. I'm really excited to sit down one-on-one with Magic Johnson. He's gonna be doing the main keynote. And so that's gonna be exciting.
That's legit.
Some good leadership conversations ahead. So nice little plug there. Come and join me at Unleash. It's gonna be a great time in May 6th through the 9th. I'll be there. The 7th and 8th, I believe, and 9th is the day of the event.
But when you came back last year, you were like, you know who we need to get? They're local to the area. We need to get Qualified. I don't qualify, yo. Darrian and I, so we've known each other, I think now for probably over 15 years.
Somewhere around there,
because I've been in Indy for 8.
Yeah.
And when I was a pastor, you're part of the church for several years.
When I was in college. I graduated in 2013 and I was at God's house.
Some more. Then. Yeah. So close to 15 years. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Saw him grow up, yo.
It was a baby.
Awesome. Wow, man. It's
can we talk about that journey? Do you mind?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people that's been following our podcast over the years know Ryan and I, we met when I was 10, he was 16. So it's always cool to see people that have known Ryan and kind of got the journey. Talk a little bit about that. And then also just kind of what brought you into this world that you're living now.
Yeah. So I went to college at Indiana Wesleyan, which for folks that aren't familiar with the landscape of Indiana, it's up in Marion, Indiana, really small town. IWU is like one of the main, or Indiana Wesleyan, sorry, is one of the main kind of staples.
IWU.
IWU. Yeah, it's a Christian university. I study finance and entrepreneurship there. So that's a little bit of like kind of the starting point of the journey. But while I was there, me and my wife started attending God's house where Ryan and Katara were the lead pastors. And so that's where I first met Ryan and the family, and actually there's like a lot of interweaving because I forget when you left God's house.
Right. Because you were working at, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. Cause my first,
did you know that?
Yeah.
He worked here at TCC in finance out of college.
Wow.
Yeah.
Before you got connected. So this is before.
Probably around the same time. Like, I feel like we both started there in like kind of similar time periods. But
right about the same time. And I was kind of transitioning and doing the bivocational, 1 foot in church and 1 foot in business. Starting the Culture Good.
Yeah. So
you were part of the Culture Good as it launched.
Yeah. Cause that was when it was, I think my memory of it is like volunteering,
cutting checks is what you remember.
Voluntarily.
Like the CFO complaining and bitching that we're spending all the money at first, and then it's like, no, it works.
Because I was on the accounts payable side, so I got to see a lot of what everyone was kind of spending money on. So, but I was like super low on the totem then. My buddy Aaron, who still is here, who we just ran into on the way to the studio, he got a job like while we were still in school. I think he started off as an intern, and then that led like I didn't know really where I was going to go. And I was like, he's like, hey, they need another finance person. And I was like, sure, let's sign up. And we lived together, drove to work every day when the office moved from Marion, Indiana to Carmel. We were commuting back and forth. Like
I forgot you were part of that commute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like he and I lived together and worked together. Like
that's so cool.
Like, and we were on the same basketball team in college. And so it was cool to like start somewhere.
Who's better?
Yeah, I was about to ask that question. He's taller.
He's I'm never gonna say someone's better than me, but he's a 4-year starter, like, and he can shoot from like half court. We were just talking about the league that just ended up. He's our leading scorer. He averaged like 30 in this church league that we were just in. So I'll give him to him. But I get him the ball when he needs it. So I'll go there.
Yeah,
so,
gotcha.
I'm nice though. I'll
okay.
Aaron's the highest scorer, but he shoots 20%.
Yeah. So he's got about 13 for 40.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So no, that's like
cool.
That's kind of the start of my career. And Ryan was there at the got to see the very beginning of it. And I met my wife in school. Like I said, we went to God's house, so like we all kind of know the family and got to know each other then too. So it's been pretty cool to just see where things have taken us, and now we're here. So
the evolution's crazy because you were a part of everything that we were doing that no one at TCC was aware of. As we were going into TCC, which I think at that point was in like 42 states, I believe. Mm-hmm. Already growing exponentially.
And I was there during like all the not all of them, but like when it was on the acquisition tear, I was like here during that period of time too.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't really know like the backpack giveaway that's like millions of backpacks now is like, the first year had 25 backpacks. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, God's house. Like we didn't have that. And then eventually it started growing and growing. And I think by the time you were a part of it, we were doing like the block party and that. Yeah. And then bringing that into business and scaling that and seeing the evolution of that. And then watching your journey with like, just coming out of college and then working here. And then I remember you starting to talk about this new idea.
Yeah.
And it's pretty wild, man.
Yeah. It's been really cool. Cause like, I loved working here. Like I always tell people there's like nothing at all to complain about. Like the people that I work with are friends and the culture is amazing. But I started to have that entrepreneurial itch, like pretty much since I like started here, but like I stayed here for 2 years. And before I did what I do now, there was another company that I was a part of that was a startup company. My friend, also from Indiana Wesleyan, I was a 2-sport athlete. So I played basketball, ran track. One of my track teammates, he was starting something. We worked together as a side project. And he started another company that started to take off. And he was like, hey, my co-founder's not really involved. I would love to get some help because things are starting to scale up. And that was about 2 years into me being here at TCC. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And my wife was, I think my wife was like 7 months pregnant at the time and with our first kid. Yeah. But
where's that come from? Like that, like willing, like, is there a spark?
Yeah. I think it's a miswiring in my brain.
Yeah. it's the crazy people that do this stuff.
Yeah. No, honestly, like, I think it's a little bit of how I was raised in the sense of I got to see a lot of successful people, growing up. My dad came from like the poorest environment and is really successful in business. And then a lot of my family and friends, like my uncles that are really just like my dad's fraternity brothers or my dad's and mom's good friends. They've done things that like executives at like really big companies. My older brother played professional sports. And so I got to see people do things at a really high level. Yeah. And so I always had this like itch to, when's my time? Like, what's that next thing? Or what's that going to be for me? And as like sports started to fade out in the sense of like kind of realizing like that's not going to be where I'm not going to go pro. I started to think about like what I really have a passion about. And it's really like starting things. At first it was just like scheming up stuff. Like how can I like,
that's kind of what start the entrepreneurship is like
a schemepreneur is what you are. So we always, when we started, it was like schemepreneur. That's the hustler mentality. Yeah. Then it's jobpreneur, where you're just working in the business 24/7. And then entrepreneurship is really where you're growing and developing.
I like that.
On that level. Then you become really wealthy, and then you're just a preneur.
It's like schemepreneur, jobpreneur.
I've never heard it actually schemepreneur. That's fitting. Yeah, because I think that piece like started at like an early age, like always like trying to drop some sort of invention, show my dad, and my dad knew that I was pretty motivated by money. So even with sports, he'd be like trying to motivate me, like, hey, you know, they score 20 points, I'll give you $20, that sort of stuff. So I was always pretty motivated to like figure out, you know, how to hustle. Or when I got into college, I was like flipping like cheap watches that I'd buy on eBay and just wear them a couple times because I liked them. And then
when somebody notices it, that's what I do at the local bar. Yeah, with jackets. Yeah, I buy old jackets and I wear them to the bar, and somebody inevitably will come up and be like, "Where'd you find that jacket?" I'm like, "I resell." I pay for my beer.
My store.
I'm a beerpreneur.
That's awesome. So behind that, what was the true inspiration? And then also for those in the audience that don't know much about Qualifi, let's talk about the impact. What is Qualifi? What does it do? Because there's tons of, you know, for me looking into the HR tech space, I see a lot of companies doing things, great things, good things, schemepreneur things, you know, jobpreneur. I see a lot of those things. Talk a little bit about what Qualifi is, and then what was the inspiration outside of owning your own business and growing and developing and starting something. What was your inspiration to bring that value to people, specifically for Qualifi to their clients?
So Qualifi is the phone interview company. We now have an end-to-end screening platform centered around the phone interview experience. It's an asynchronous phone interview. So instead of recruiters doing live phone interviews back to back all day, generally speaking, in like a high volume environment, they're able to pre-record with their own voice. So like the power of voice is really important. That human touch involved with that is still super important to us, but they were able to record their own questions with their own voice, set it up in a structured interview. So every candidate's going to get the same consistent experience. And then they can automatically or manually send out invites to these candidates via text or email. And that gives the candidates this convenience where they can take an interview at any time that they'd like to, which usually is on the same day. So it ends up providing a convenience to the candidates, but being really valuable to the recruiters because they get interviews back same day, as opposed to having to schedule and get ghosted and then like wait a week to like hear back from candidates. It kind of bridges that gap faster. And we record the audio of the candidates' responses and send it back to the recruiter to listen to or read the transcriptions. We also provide a little bit of insights.
Okay, nice. I was wondering about that.
And
is it like, I mean, obviously it's based on the questions, right? The interview questions, but how much of it's focused on hard skill comparable to like a soft skill? Can you capture some of that?
Like right now I would honestly say like we're pretty rudimentary in like the insights that we provide. Like we want to just like perform the task well, and the big value that we're getting is that speed and return. Like the average response comes back in less than 19 hours from the time the candidate gets the invite, compared to usually like a week that the recruiter has to wait. And so what the insights that we provide is, one, we do like survey questions, like clickable responses as well. And so we can score and like help filter candidates that way. And then we also do like keywords. So if you're listening for specific things that candidates are saying, we can easily say like, hey, this candidate hit this number of keywords, so they might be speaking like a similar language to like what you want to hear. So right now we're not trying to like make the decision for you. We're just trying to like surface candidates, allow you to like take quicker action on them. So that's kind of like where we're at today, but I'm really excited about the potential of AI.
I was about to ask about that specifically, because once you get the answers back, I would imagine AI can help curate
for sure. But like we've always been like part of our like culture and like us getting started like internally, like we want to build with diversity in mind, and then like live that out with the product as well. So like a lot of companies in our space have a lot of AI or what they boast to be AI, and sometimes that can be problematic. And so we've taken like a slower approach to incorporating AI, because sometimes recruiters don't trust it, and so that
Mhm.
becomes a friction point when we're trying to sell them a product.
Right.
And then for us, we don't want to be problematic. We don't want to scale a
Yeah.
bias
Yeah,
in the system, you know,
'Cause
like
AI is going to be biased
yeah,
because the people that
the build
put the information into
Yeah.
AI to tell us what
Yeah.
to think or to believe or anything else is biased.
Yeah. And even if you control it yourself or as an organization, you might say, like, we're going to anchor on these things. It might not be the most objective thing to anchor on. And so we've generally taken a slower approach, but like at the same time, still very excited about what the potential is and
Yeah.
seeing how we can slowly incorporate that the right way.
Because I think the challenge would be then, and this is for any industry, is like as innovation progresses and
Yeah.
and that's just exponentially year over year. I was just reading something that I think hard skill training has a 5-year shelf life, so
Interesting.
you can't even upskill.
Yeah.
You have to keep reskilling, especially in terms of like AI,
Yeah.
right? Because it will replace certain
Right.
types of function of jobs. It won't replace people
Right.
necessarily, because people can learn AI and keep
Yeah.
a job. But how do you keep the experience human?
Yeah.
Right? Because we think about like championing people on the podcast, and like the technology will always push us beyond human experience. And so like, I think that would be one way, is just to be really cautious about the approach.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool that Qualifi is doing that. What other ways have you seen, even in the interview process, to kind of rehumanize the experience?
Yeah.
Since it's a tech heavy type of experience in itself, is like, how do you rehumanize that?
Yeah. I think that there's a few ways, like even from day one, I've emphasized a couple times that it's human voices involved. We do have a feature called voiceover, where it's text to speech, where if you're, as a recruiter, maybe you don't feel comfortable with like being behind a microphone, you can easily type.
Okay.
Or maybe you just want structure. These like very authentic synthetic voices.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That can be generated.
Do they sound real?
As I watch the
videos,
yeah.
they sound really real.
Sound really, I wish I had my computer. I could like show you.
That's pretty
examples.
cool.
Sometimes it's like hard to tell the difference, but by and large, most recruiting teams that we work with use their own voice. So like they have a recruiter on the team, or multiple recruiters like will record their own interviews.
Yeah.
So that's one, like having human voices involved on both ends. And then we try to coach people on how to create a better experience, and from the starting point before the interview, like how do you inform your candidates of what they're going to experience, making sure the instructions are laid out, why you're doing this interview this way in the first place.
Nice.
Dang, there's another thing that I was going to kind of get at, but those are some of like kind of the basics of it. Another thing that we're wanting to incorporate more is just accessibility into the product. One of the features I'm really excited about that is not apparent always is when you're taking the interview. So one, the interviews can be done over a standard phone call, which is a form of accessibility. Most people have access to a phone, whether it be their cell phone or a landline, versus our competitors are more video based.
Okay.
So you have to have a webcam and high-speed internet, and be camera ready.
That's an issue too, isn't it? Because people have biases around what
what you look like, or even like your environment that you're in. Like some people might not have like a pretty background to take these interviews in, but they're still very qualified for the job. And so ours is just strictly audio focused. And then from an accessibility standpoint, when you do it over the web, we also have a feature where it reads the question to you as well. Like you can read the question, as opposed to just hearing it too. So I'm excited about what technology can afford people in those sorts of ways, where there is something different about talking live with someone, but sometimes that can present different issues or different pressures or different biases that come into play. And so adding that structure and incorporating technology can in some ways be more human and give people a fair chance.
I agree.
So excited about
almost like we kind of need that process to actually kind of be a little less human.
I
mean, you know what I'm saying? Like a little more objective than subjective, because so much of the hiring process and screening is subjective to the person that you're talking to.
I
mean, there's really no way to change that, but in terms of having that step where there's more accessibility in the process, I think is a key.
Well, you touched on something that I don't have a ton of like knowledge around yet, but I'm excited around what Qualifi could potentially do in the spaces around skills. And like right now, the insights that we bring are kind of centered around keywords. But if that experience was centered around skills that we're able to capture, like sometimes as a recruiter, you may not be able to like associate things in your head as a skill or like how this candidate, because of this specific thing that they've done or exhibited, relates to the role. And maybe you're just like thinking like, oh, they don't have this experience, so they're not fit for this job. But maybe they have an experience in a different field and they have all the skills, it's just not on paper. It might not seem that way. So how can we maybe create more opportunities through data and insights that might not be apparent just by looking at a resume or just first glance at a, or first listen on an interview.
Earlier on, and I just want to share the stat, and this is some of our new TA research stuff. As you're talking about the whole AI and humanizing things, we always have this complexity and the challenge of, a lot of people will say, man, AI is going to replace us, and it's not. I think there's an AI plus HI, right? So human experience and human intelligence align with the AI. But 41% of companies in a research study we did said that they have fewer recruiters due to AI's efficiencies. So they are using it more. But one of my questions to you is into another data point. 7 in 10 candidates say that they stay in touch with their first recruiter. Have you seen any challenges with that when it comes to, obviously this is initial, first touch type of a situation, but what are the things that Qualifi presents to those clients and also to those people being recruited that says, man, I'm more likely to stay where I'm at based on that first relationship because I trusted that recruiter. That recruiter came out to be real, right? They didn't overpaint some picture, kind of that under promise, over deliver type standpoint of what the company is, who they are, what they are about, from a culture standpoint, from work and responsibility, even maybe from a well-being standpoint as well. All those different things, very transparent. And having a transparent recruiter allow me to stay connected with that person. For those people who are talking to audible voice on that first touch, have there been any challenges there, or does a relationship form after that first touch with that recruiter?
So I guess a clarifying question, is that saying that after they get hired at an organization, they stay in touch with the recruiter that brought them there? Is that the idea of that? Yeah, no, that's awesome. And what we usually talk about is, one, we're usually like the first touch in the experience. And now we're an end-to-end platform, so we help kind of bridge the gaps.
I want to talk about that too, that's a whole new thing, right?
Right.
You've been working on.
Yeah, we went from one product for the first few years to now like 3 or 4 products where we try to help streamline the process from the first interview through the last interview. And what we talk about when it comes to that first screening, that phone interview experience is we're not trying to remove the humans out of the process. We're trying to get the most qualified candidates in front of you and scheduled with you so you can build the relationship with the best candidates for the opportunity and not waste your time with the multitude of other candidates that were just likely not going to be a good fit anyway. And so what a recruiter's job amounts to a lot of times is a lot of beyond the relationship building is a ton of admin work, and we're trying to remove all of that admin work and get the fluff out of the way so they can spend time with the most qualified candidates. So instead of talking with 20 candidates for a role, let's spend time and get to know 5 candidates really well and make sure that they're the right fit and get them in front of the hiring managers.
It's good.
Yeah, it's really smart. I wanted, is it okay if we take a real quick, I want to take a real quick break because I found something online that I think is, goes along with our conversation today. And this is, I read this.
Is this going to be a come on, man? Is this as crazy as
if I could find it, if I saved it, I don't know. I'm trying to find the actual company that did this, and I'm not finding it, but they sent out, there was a company, interview company that wanted to get some stats. And so they just read this. They sent out, they completed 41,000 themselves. This is the worst idea ever, so don't do this. But they completed 41,000 applications out.
Okay.
And basically flooded with 41,000 applications out there just to get the data back in terms of how hiring is happening and
Yeah.
stuff. And then everybody in the comments was like, oh, no wonder it's flooded out there. You
Yeah.
know, like all these companies are like, to your point, like a lot of the recruiters are just inundated with like,
Yeah.
especially after the pandemic. I would imagine during the pandemic, I was thinking during the pandemic that Qualifi probably just went like,
It's interesting. So like, well, one, I wonder if I saw the same article. The article I saw was in the New York Times. It was
could have been,
80. It was like 80,000.
Was it
It was
80,000?
80,000 resumes to
Maybe
see
I
what
had
like.
it wrong.
I think they were trying to study the
I just thought it was
potential biases and like when you use
yeah,
like names that are typically black versus names that are typically white,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and like what the results were. So yeah,
I was cracking up.
yeah, that's like, but like even without that, there's like certain roles that are just going to get flooded with applications, and those are usually the type of environments that we work best in and help recruiters in. Is when you're getting a lot of applications, you have a ton of a lot of recruiters like have a high rec load, so like they're trying to recruit for like 40 jobs at a time, and like that's it just sounds impossible,
Right.
And so yeah, I forget what your like during the pandemic. It's
Oh
funny.
yeah. Did that? I would imagine, because I was like, everything was no touch.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the biggest thing that the like pandemic afforded us was kind of the change in perception around technology. I can't prove that with any level of data, but I think
I know a guy.
yeah, Ben can. What does the data say?
Yeah. But my hunch is that pre-COVID versus now people are more receptive to technology in their everyday life, everyday work life. And so getting an invite to take an interview in this manner is not super intimidating or frustrating. And so we see really great, like actually overwhelmingly positive response or feedback from candidates. Which for a while we didn't collect that information. We just didn't have it built into the product, but we knew all along that candidates needed to be receptive to this at the very least, if not like it or love it. Because if not, then recruiters are not gonna entertain this at all. So but yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I always tell people, like, during like COVID and right before, we were just getting started and like struggling to like figure out who do we need to sell to, how do we get this in front of people. No one knows who we are. No one knows like this sort of solution exists too. And so we didn't really have any like revenue, like we didn't have a ton of customers. And so like I was like use the example of like the different grants and loans that were floating out there. I was like, we couldn't like part of them were, if you could show a dip in your revenue related to COVID,
or so let's see a ton of traction.
Well, like the federal loans and stuff. Like, hey, if you could show like a decline in your revenue, then we'll give you like some money. And it's like, well, we couldn't really show a decline in revenue because we didn't really have revenue. So like the pandemic didn't really change us as a business in that way, but more so I think the reception from a candidate's perspective.
That's why I was wondering too, like, what is, other than just the newer idea of the technology itself. I remember when you first launching, and I remember having a conversation with you, like, let's get this into TCC and the challenges of like, they were already engaging with this, not a different similar product, but a different type of thing in terms of their, at that time, what they're interviewing. What's the challenge for the integration in these companies? You know, like what's the what is it that has been the most difficult in terms of getting the messaging out and people understanding what it is that you do?
I think it's like multi-layered, and if you follow me or us on LinkedIn now, you see like we're trying to get our presence.
You have a podcast too, right?
I do have a podcast.
What's it called?
So I have a podcast called Future at Work, where I interview other founders that are in like the HRTA, or just generally the workspace. And then my brother has one that's under the Qualifi proper. It's called Higher Quality, where he interviews talent acquisition leaders. And so part of the effort of that is we want people to just know who we are. But the challenge with when we're going into different organizations is they might not know this solution exists, let alone qualify. And they might not know that they have a problem in this space, like phone interviews. Like, we're really passionate about phone interviews, but that's probably a really overlooked area where it's just such a common thing. I was like, yeah, we're gonna get applications, we're gonna call people,
We'll do a phone interview.
yeah. So it's a commonly accepted thing that recruiters do, but they might not think of analyzing, oh, is this efficient? Are we wasting time? Are we doing it the right way? So I think those are some of the challenges. And then when it comes to like, all right, once they've bought into it, it's the kind of change management of doing it a new way.
Yeah.
The technology is pretty straightforward. It's like you record I always tell people the hardest part about using Qualifi is getting the questions recorded, which is really easy. You hit record.
Yeah.
And you talk. And then you hit record.
This seems like this eliminates the ghosting.
Yeah.
As well, because if you ghost a phone interview that's a recording,
you probably weren't interested in the first place.
And that's on you.
Yeah.
But if you're a recruiter and you keep getting ghosted and you have that call set up at 2:00 and at 2:30 and at 3:00 and two of them ghost you.
That's a slot that you missed.
You've wasted your morning, yo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, this makes a lot of sense because it eliminates the initial ghost.
Yeah.
And then once you get that information, I would imagine there's less of a percentage of ghosting post that initial interview.
Yeah. Because I was trying to get, when you asked that, when you're talking about that stat, I was trying to get clarification, because one of the things that we kind of talk about is being the first to offer is a huge difference. I think the stat I've found and kind of worked in our favor a little bit is, I think it's 83% of job offers get accepted. So that's a pretty high rate. So the assumption or the correlation that I make is if you can position yourself as a recruiting organization to make the offer to your candidate before any of the competition can, you're setting yourself up for a high likelihood to win candidates, but assuming they are your most prized candidates, you're going to win your most prized candidates. And so
that's huge.
Yeah.
Eliminate ghosting and actually being first in the game.
Yeah.
So you think about the speed of it too. I mean, the process of it as well. I want to, if we spend a lot of time on the business, I want to get inside of it a little bit and speak to the talent acquisition audience that follow our podcast. What are some trends that you're looking at, and even focuses? Obviously you're more based on the first foundation of recruiting, but I feel like Qualified does a little bit more, or at least in the future. I don't get too far ahead and ask what's going on next. But what are some things that you're, as a CEO and a founder, then just somebody who truly enjoys talent acquisition space for organizations, what are some things that you're looking at, and how does that then relate also to Qualify? Is there some things you're seeing from transparency? That's been a big topic within the recruiting standpoint, and how transparent they are, not just in the recruiting standpoint, but also in the questions that they're asking, recording. Is that true? Like, is pay and benefits truly being transparent in that? What are some things you specifically are focused on in 2024? It's getting you excited for, man, Qualify can. That's part of a solution we can provide.
Absolutely. So we started with the phone interviews, and there's more, I think, to that beyond just asynchronous phone interviews. But like what we've built out since then is the kind of clickable survey experience, which can be a broader, I think that can translate into like a broader sort of assessment to some degree, or just capturing a different sort of information. Next, we've moved into scheduling. So what happens after our phone, or maybe even independent of a phone interview, is we got to get them scheduled with a recruiter or with a hiring manager, or maybe it's an onboarding or some sort. And then with that, we have live interviews as well, virtual. So if that scheduled step is a virtual interview, we have a solution for that as well. But when it comes to things that I'm excited about, that I see also as trends right now, or things that are being talked about a decent amount, you kind of touched, not to go back to it, but the skills-based hiring. I think that's something I've seen a lot, and I think is something that we can tap into and potentially help with. And I think that creates a bit more of an objective way and an objective approach to hiring.
This is cool, because if there's a lack of skills, then you call culture good and we can come in and help do the training.
That was perfect. Yeah, like
train your candidates before they get hired. That's a whole new training.
Because like I'm not like I'm an entrepreneur. I try to like talk about what I know well and what I don't, and be honest about what I don't know well. But I think the kind of IO psychology piece like is really intriguing to me, of like what people say and how they talk about what they do, like what they articulate to you. One of the things I know to be pretty true is that resumes are dying, or maybe already close to dead, or they're changing at the very least because of, one, I think just how people approach reviewing resumes, and then with AI, like, you know, are they writing the resumes or someone writing the resume for you? Like what's actually what? And people can easily fluff things on resumes. And so what people tell you about what they do or how they articulate what they have done in the past, I think matters a bit more.
Yeah.
And then other sources of capturing information about a candidate, I think matter a bit more, and kind of bringing all those together. But yeah,
you talk about the AI aspect of interviews, and 7 in 10 candidates are using ChatGPT or a form of software to do interview questions. So they're getting asked a question, they throw it into the software and other tools and games, and it's giving them the proper sentence. And you literally, you're looking at the camera, and the way it is, it's literally like a rolling screen, and you're able to get that. So, but the crazy thing is that companies and organizations are not necessarily countering that. So people are getting better at interviews on one side of the table, and employers are like, man, how are they so flipping good?
Well, I mean, it's set up that way to get better. We become more skilled. I know my daughter's partner, he applies constantly.
Really?
Yeah.
Even though he's actively employed.
Oh, probably every week he applies somewhere. Just
I don't blame.
I mean, it's just part of their generation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just like he's constantly looking, and I'm like, you're good at this. Not ChatGPT. Like he's gotten really good at it.
Interesting.
You know? But that is an interesting thing, because you can get really good at interviewing
and not know how to do the job.
It's so interesting, man. Yeah, I mean, eventually you'll get found out, right?
Right. Yeah.
It was like this morning I went and made my coffee, and someone was talking to me, and I grabbed my coffee, made it, put the thing in, put it down, hit the button, had my coffee, started walking down the hallway, started to take a sip, and I guess the packet had fallen back behind it, so all I had was hot water. It's kind of like
you just like on autopilot.
It's like you're hoping you get one thing, but you end up with there's like no substance to it, just hot water or hot air.
And some people like are skilled enough to do like 4 jobs at once. I know
there are people doing that
like,
stuff
especially
too.
in a virtual environment, can manage like 2-3 jobs, or like in some settings can manage like 2 to 3 jobs at once. And
I would imagine you could utilize AI to help with a lot of that.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of that kind of thing. But that's interesting.
Yeah.
What are some other things, other trends outside of necessarily recruiting? Is there anything else that that's been interesting in HR space?
Sure there has. Trying to think about some of the guests that we might have had on the podcast recently. I think health and wellness, like I had a guest recently, and her company is centered around health and wellness as like kind of the banner, but really taking like a more practical approach to it. Like it's not always about like the perks and like
more of a holistic.
It's like, how do you do work itself to like make people enjoy the work? The work is the stress causer, so don't try to like you're gonna be stressed here, so we'll throw some vacation package at you. Like, how do we make the work less stressful? How do we make it more meaningful? I imagine that ties into a lot of like what you guys do as well. And so I think that, I mean, I guess other trends is probably less trendy, but just like a kind of recurring topic is like the virtual versus remote versus hybrid, how to approach that. Like what is your, like, how to build culture in any of those environments.
How does Qualifi do that? How have you guys done that with the culture?
We started basically as a remote company. Like we started as a remote company. Basically, we started as a remote company. It started off as like just a kind of a side project.
You and your brother in your house.
Yeah. Me and my brother, 2 other.
Are you guys still friends?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're just, I wouldn't be able to do this like without, working.
Understood. Yeah.
And so that's been great. But like it would start off as like kind of a side project. We all had like full-time gigs, and so it was late nights. We would just hop on a Google Meet and just talk about what we wanted to do that week. And then it just, as we started hiring people, it just kind of stayed that way. And then we started officially in 2019, but really before that.
Okay.
And so COVID just like cemented it, you know, as we hired more people throughout that period. And it's interesting. I've talked to like we just had our team. What we do is we're remote, and then we do have a co-working space. Really, it's just me and my brother go there. I go there a couple times a week. And then every quarter, the whole team
I
comes
think I can see it from here.
Yeah.
You were
Like
talking earlier.
It's like 5 minutes away.
Yeah, it's like right across the highway.
So, yeah, every quarter we bring the whole team in and have like that like a few days of in-person time, strategize for the quarter, recap the last quarter. And that's since last year, we were like really intentional about that, because I love working remotely. I wouldn't want to not work remotely, but like there is something that you can't, like there's some things you can do remote. Or at least I feel it's easier. Let's say it's easier. I think there's a lot of things that you can easily make the excuse like, oh, you can't do it.
Sure.
I think there's ways to do it.
Pilot.
Yeah. It takes effort to,
you have to be there.
To do certain things the same way. But yes, we have that intentional time like in person. But I've like, pulled the group, and then I was like, hey, what if we what if I mandated or like said, hey, we all got to come back into the office? They'd be like, yeah, you're gonna have to find a whole new team.
Yeah, you're gonna have to use Qualifi to start hiring people.
Exactly. So I think it changed, and I've witnessed that, like, been in the office recently where the team had a mandate to come back in, and I'll say they're pretty frustrated, about that. And so, but I think the purpose for why you're doing that matters, and understanding the culture. Like, I think that like what people were used to, what the context of how they came into the organization matters in terms of like any of those certain changes. So yeah,
that's cool stuff. Do you get, as far as the feedback you're hearing from those that are using Qualifi, right?
Yeah.
And the process, and what are you hearing that you're loving right now? You know what I mean? Like when someone calls you and they're like, this happened, thank you.
Yeah.
What's the thing that you're like, okay, I'm gonna keep doing this because it does help people.
Yeah.
You know
I think that's tough, because like we hear, like, I think like the more customers we work with, like the more we hear back from it. And it like, not to say it becomes like numbing, that sounds a little egotistical, but like we keep hearing different stories. I think the thing that's cool to me is like hearing different use cases that I didn't think of before, or different like
Can you share one of those?
case studies, like like people switching from a competitor, like a video interviewing product, and seeing an increase of the the next stages of their funnel. Like when we started, we were like, hey, recruiters will be more efficient. Like that was like the mindset, like, well, like
that's where my brain goes.
Yeah, they'll get like more
easy. Everybody's gonna want this.
Yeah, but then we see like other results that we didn't think of.
That's
like
great.
Increases in offer acceptance rates. Like
Mhm.
we weren't thinking about that before. And so it kind of ties back to the being that first in line to the candidates that you want. So case studies like that. I'm trying to think. I wish I had my sales guy.
What about personal case studies?
Nice.
What about case studies within yourself? I mean, as far as
your
you're
culture.
talking about growing your team and your culture. I mean, I would assume you're using Qualifi for some of your recruiting.
Yeah, we use it. It's a must. Yeah.
Qualified's qualifying, they're qualified.
Yeah.
Like we use culture good.
But what are you specifically from a CEO standpoint, with a TA mindset? What are you looking for when you're looking to hire for your team?
It's interesting,
especially remotely.
Yeah, going through like so context and like transparency. Like 2023 was one of it. We've been through a lot of challenges at Qualifi from day one. I told you, like, for the first couple of years, I was just like struggling to like find any customers and stay alive, get funding, like all of that. So like, when we first got started, it was like 6 months of me like not making an income. So like, I always try to remind myself of those times and put things into perspective. But 2023 was really rocky. There's some like when you're trying to grow by any means possible, you take on customers that probably are not a good fit, and so some of those customers like see value at first, but then they end up leaving. So we had some of that,
and you kind of build out for that client.
Yeah,
I've heard that a lot in the entrepreneurial space. You're taking on the larger client. You're like, oh, we got somebody, and it's like, hopefully it's like a 3-year deal, and then a year later you've built out your team, and then they jet.
Stuff like that. And like, I mean, that's close to, what happened in 2023, and then plus the market dynamics, like, even customers that, really loved us, like they had to leave for like certain reasons and stuff like that. And so like that was challenging. We had people that we had to say goodbye to on the team last year. And so like that is rough. And now I feel like the team is small and close knit, and it's like I feel like the right group for the task at hand to like get us to the next level, fight through, definitely like for certain challenges that we were definitely like, we're not going to be a stranger to knowing that there's going to be more challenges ahead. But as I think about like hiring in the future, like some of the things that, this is maybe purely from a startup perspective. Hopefully it applies to some folks that are listening. But I think some of the things that I would think of differently is I'm pretty still young in my career. I consider I plan to do this for a long time. And so I think one of the things is like hiring people that maybe have a little bit more seniority than what we thought we needed at any given time. Because now I'm like, I want people to kind of like, not necessarily tell me what to do, but like, be part of the building, like literally lead the strategy from like, I've been there, done that. I know what's ahead. And like, this is the first time I've been a CEO and a founder. So there's certain things that I'm just not going to be able to know. So having folks that have like gone ahead and like
surrounding yourself with people that have been there
exactly
and done that.
And luckily we have like advisors and investors that have that experience, but people like in our space that have gone to market. So that's one thing. And then we pride ourselves on living out what we do with the product. So we do use Qualifi, the front end. We try to be really efficient and create a really positive candidate experience. But in some cases, I think slowing down and really doing what we hope our recruiting teams that we work with do is like really think about the role that you're hiring for. What are the specific skills and all the things that you're looking for? Like be really like spend your time on that, so that way when you're in the process you can move efficiently and know what you're looking for and know what you want to interview for. Because I think like you can build a structured interview and create a consistent experience, but it might just be consistently bad. So right. Let's build consistency. Consistency is like half the battle, So let's really be thoughtful around what exactly is the prototype of the candidate that we're looking for, and structure our process around that. And that should hopefully lead to better outcomes. So like as we've taken this like we're not really paused hiring. We're just that we don't have any open roles right now. So like as we have this time period where we're not like for a period where we were like hiring a decent amount of people, like the team was growing. And so now that we're like, I have this like space to think about those are some of the thoughts that I've, had recently, like more seniority and just like being a little bit more thoughtful around how do we want to approach the pre-work of hiring.
More the effectiveness, when we think about as a CEO, the type of culture that you're building internally is going to be determined by who you bring in. Because your culture is not what you do necessarily every day only, it's who you are. And so like how you show up to work, and even though your team's remote, like what makes you proud about your team? Like your culture, like the people that are working for you right now and with you. What brings you pride in that?
I think the biggest thing about like how our team works and that they have all said is like different than other organizations that they've been a part of is one of our values is unified and selfless. This actually comes from at Indiana Wesleyan, the basketball team that I was a part of. Our mantra, like branding, was I am third, and it was God first, other second, yourself third. And that's kind of the mindset that I've wanted to bring into the corporate environment. And so unified and selfless is my way of doing that. And it's team success brings individual success. So don't be selfish to try to get ahead yourself. Like with team success, we're all going to, individually succeed. So don't try to step over each other, help each other out. And I think our team does a really good job of that. And it's really cool to see like people just drop what they're doing to help their teammates out. I'm really proud of that.
How do you get people to, in a corporate word or sentence, put that? How do you get people to buy in to that mindset when some people are like, it's about me. Like I don't gotta feed their family. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to take care of me, grow and develop. How do you get people to buy in and say team success ultimately brings on my success, and really live that? Is that something that's, we see taglines, we see missions on the wall, but how do you get them to truly live that thing?
I think it's a few things. One is a staple of our culture, so like it is a value, and I think it's one thing to just say it, and then another thing is like repeating it. Like I try to, like, every time we get together for this corporate event, like our all hands and the quarterly meetings, I restate our mission and recite like our values, like make sure like we always come back to that, at least if nothing else, every quarter. The other thing is like living it out. Like me and my founders, I think we do a good job of like exemplifying those sorts of values, and we're not the biggest thing. We're not too like we're all trying, like we have to, we're all trying to win, and so like we do that. We drop what we're doing to help each other out and help our team out, and I think they see that, and then they have no choice but to get in line. And then also like hiring, like trying to hire for that, like trying to find people that are already of that mindset, I think helps. And so I think those are like the few things that we do, and that's just one of our values, but I think we try to live out all of them in a similar way.
That's good. I like that.
I was thinking about the ideas around just building the culture internally, and then also the good that you all do. Does Qualifi have like a cause or something that you're like, okay, the team does some good, or maybe you individually, like what's your passion? Just in general, it could be the business's passion or yours. What makes your heart beat in terms of the impact that you want to make on the world?
I think that's an area that as a company could, like, I think it's an area of opportunity for the company. For me, as a passion, is like doing what I'm doing is a passion. I said, like, I hope to do this multiple times over, and I think for me with my faith, like I see a future of like that intersecting. One of the things, I guess, like one of the areas where my passion as an entrepreneur like kind of comes out is I always try to make time for like other founders, especially founders that are like a step or two behind where I'm at, and like I know the struggles that they're about to go through.
You feel a little bit like an OG at that point.
I've been there.
Like,
I've been there.
It's like, I've been there and done that.
It's like a little bit of that, but like not being too far removed from it too. And then like recognizing that I've had like plenty of founders that did that for me, and try to like help me, because really what it is there's certain things that just come with being an entrepreneur that are like just difficult, that like people won't understand, and I try to like help, especially like one specific thing is like fundraising. It's like
let's talk about that.
It's the worst.
It is the worst. It's the worst experience.
It sucks. Like and there's like not a lot of getting around it. And so I try to like, I did it the wrong way for like multiple years. I told you, like a couple of years of just like no income, just struggling to survive and find people that might believe in what we're doing, and then actually learning how to do it the right way. I'm like, oh, I was doing it like the wrong way this whole time, until I'm like,
Is there one piece of advice you would give to entrepreneurs? I know there's a ton of advice, which would take mentoring, and this is a podcast, but like in terms of like, if you would have been told this one thing, you probably would have shifted your effort in that direction more, or what would you say?
I think it's like, this is super boiled down, and it takes usually a 30-minute call is not enough for me to like regurgitate everything that I try to know. But like one, I used to think it was your pitch matters, but I used to think, oh, they'll believe in the idea and like they'll give you money for it. Sometimes they, as an investor, it's just not what they invest in. Like, you're talking to the wrong people. Is it? I think maybe the advice is that fundraising is sales. So if you like in sales, if you talk to the wrong buyers, they were never going to buy it as good as the idea was.
Yeah, I've worked with Katara through her process of getting grants and funding. Yeah, you got to find the right person, because early on it was like we would sit in front of people and they just, it was like,
like, I love the idea, I'm not going to invest. Like they believe in you, they love it, like they're just not going to do it.
So if I can ask the question maybe in a different way, what's one thing about your entrepreneur journey that you would change?
Besides not doing it.
Besides quitting your job while your wife is 7 months pregnant. Although that seems to be the starting point of every entrepreneur is either wife is pregnant or they're going through a transition and moving. Like I was in that situation where I was moving and transitioning. I moved to Georgia and we were starting 2 new stores, and it was like, why? What's the one thing you would change about your journey? Not necessarily because it was wrong, but maybe disciplining more time or allocating more time towards something. Not that you regret, because I don't think, as an entrepreneur and just as a person in general, I do things that I try not to regret. I don't want to go back and say I regret it. Either looked good, was good, felt good, tasted good, or it was worth the try. Like try anything once. And most things.
Most things.
Most of the time. But what's one thing you would change?
It's interesting. I to what you were just saying, I don't think I would like change anything because it all led here, right? But I always tell people I would not do this like the same way next time. And that would be I don't know what the specific advice. The very specific advice is like, don't rack up tens of thousands of dollars of credit card debt, because that's what it took to like get that first piece started. That's very real. Like it creates.
Thanks for sharing that. This is real stuff.
It's very real.
People out there that need to hear that right now.
Like
you grabbing your card right now. Pause, homie.
Don't do it. Like, because for me, like I'm the type of person that once my mind is made up, I'm doing that. Like I bought a car when I wasn't even in the market. I just showed up at the lot and like I was like, I didn't negotiate it up. They're like, I'm like, I really like it. Let's go. It was a Honda Civic. It wasn't anything crazy. But
I understand, man. My 2011, I had a Honda Accord that just looked at me and it wanted me. I drove it.
I just make gut decisions and like I go with it. So like that was the story of Qualifi. Like when I got laid off at the company I was at prior, it was I was already working on Qualifi as a side project, so I was already really excited about it. I had options to like I put a resume together. I didn't send it anywhere. And like the place that laid me off, like they gave me an option to stay for like a lesser role and lesser money. So like that could have been an option. And I would have had like income nonetheless coming in. And so as I think back, I probably would have been like, Qualifi was just an idea that it was not generating money, had no funding. So like hindsight, maybe if I would have kept it as a side project and figured out the market, figured out who to sell to, refine the product a bit more before going full time, having a stable income and not putting that extra stress on my head, like that's maybe a different experience. But by the same token, if I didn't get that, there was maybe that push to like really go all in on it. Like that's where
I've heard that too, because it's like, I think it was Tony Robbins talks about like when you get to that island, burn your boats. When you get to that next shore, burn your boats, because if you have boats, you'll head back.
Exactly.
And it's like you burnt your boats, man. You're like, I got all this debt on
this
cars.
Is what I'm doing.
It's interesting because the best advice we would give may not have led you to what you're saying. I think I think it is important to say, like, and that's where the mentorship comes in, right? I think if you're an entrepreneur out there and listening, or in any work or life in general, like when we don't have mentors, we really don't grow at the same pace that we should or could.
And you don't see like outside of what you can see, like, because for me it was like I only saw one option. Like I only saw one path. I'm like, I have to do this. And like again, I got in some ways lucky, and it's still the story still played out, so it may or may not, like I think it's worked out like all said and done because I have this experience. But when it comes to like the outcomes that we all hope as entrepreneurs. Like, we'll see how that goes for me in this case. But yeah, like having mentors, having like perspective, I think is helpful. Even if you still go with that decision, even if you still say, hey, I'm risking it all, throwing this all on the credit card, like at least you have the perspective and like you're making it a bit more of an informed decision. But for me, the advice on that is just it puts, even if you just think about it from the business standpoint, it puts your brain space in a different, like you're not able to make great business decisions because you're thinking personally about your own situation, your own personal finances. And so that was actually advice from an investor, like, hey, I want you to like figure things out to get your personal finances in order, so that way you can make better business decisions, because those two things are hard to like uncouple.
You can't manage them separately. Yeah. It's good stuff.
Let me get back to I'm all about the recruiting. I have so much going through my head, so I'm actually just random changing the topic again because I'm good at that. What is your favorite? I don't know if you get to see the back end of some of these questions or get to hear some of your clients' questions. If not, what is one of your favorite non-traditional recruiting questions to ask somebody?
That's cool.
And the reason why I say that, and I'll give you mine. When I was recruiting in our retail stores, I just hated the top 5, 10, Google sheet questions, because I felt like you'll have somebody like us that's been through the interview process a few times. You know exactly what their recruiter is looking for. That's going to tweak their ear. Like, you go through 10 interviews. After 10 interviews, you know exactly the question. So I always wanted to ask like off the wall question. My favorite question, especially when it came down to whether or not I was going to hire a salesperson or a technician or they were a manager, was I would ask them, if we were to sit down at Starbucks or whatever the coffee place nearby in town was, and I gave you 2 games to play, checkers or chess, which one would you pick and why? And when I asked that question for 2, I wanted somebody who thought strategic. I knew they'd be a good technician or a manager, depending on the role that they were on. Somebody that was just quick and easy, salesperson. Less talking, get straight to the solution that we're going to provide, and get that person out there. So it's chess and checkers. I didn't want technicians or managers that wanted the easy way out. So if the technician that's coming in was like, oh yeah, that means they're going to leave screws out of the phone. There's going to be parts of the phone that are going to be set over here. There's going to be dust aside. So it's always important to have strategic long game, thinking about not just the next one, but what does the next 3 or 4 things look like that had a bigger scale. So I always love to ask that question. The second question I love to ask was if you can have any superpower. I wanted some creativity. Let me see what your creativity is and why. And just kind of, because it was off the wall, they wasn't ready for this. So I would ask 2 traditional questions, and then I had like 5 of those type of questions where I would say chess or checkers, superpower. And then what are your favorite types of socks, right? Just random stuff. Why?
Types of socks.
Because socks, for me, I love socks. I love shoes. And if you wore plain socks, it's just kind of like, you don't get a second interview no matter what. If you wore good socks, then I was like, all right, if that first interview bombed, I'll give you a second one.
That's why we have to get the bias out of.
That's if you wore no socks, you better have a damn good pedicure.
That's like, if I can, I won't challenge you too hard on it, but like, so when I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think I have a favorite one. The way that we do it internally, and like some of our clients do, is they'll ask the lead off question. It's something like that as a warm up.
Icebreaker.
As the icebreaker warm up to like, if nothing else, get them comfortable with the Qualifi experience, because it might be new for them. And so like, whenever I do like a demo, like my interview question is like, what's your favorite coffee order? Or what's your favorite order if you're at Starbucks? Or I think I switched it up, like, what's your favorite beverage, like adult or otherwise? And then like I'll have like a conversational response, like if it's like in the next question. And so we use that more so like just to break the ice and like get them warmed up and make them feel at ease in the interview experience. But I don't, like, for me personally, I don't give any credence to those responses. And I think like some, like, not to challenge you too much on it, but I think
that's fine. That's why I'm not in the business anymore. There's a reason why we hired an HR person. Kristen came in, and I never got to do it anymore.
Because I think like
TA people out there, please calm down. Some of that was a joke.
No, but we've done that in the past, like, and I think that's an area. I think we, meaning like me at previous companies, I forget if we've done that at all for Qualifi, but like sometimes like those can be like even that checkers and chess question seems like probably like, if someone says chess, like they might be more strategic, but I would be curious, like if they actually are, if they're just like, oh, my grandpa played chess, so I play chess and I like it, but I'm like,
I think I struck like 67% with that question.
It might, like, I'd be curious to see like the correlation of like how strategic people are if they play chess regularly, stuff like that. So that's where like the break, like knowing the right questions to ask.
You don't want your CEO doing the interviews. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Because like people think that they are better interviewers than they end up being, and like I think I've even like
Scott, when I got hired into TCC, he hired me. Like Scott. So we had several conversations before the actual interview. My interview was one question.
Okay.
So he kind of interviewed me before this,
like
but
over time.
His question that he asked everyone that he hired early on was, if I went out to your car and turned on the radio, what would come on? What were you listening to on the way in here?
What's his evaluation of that?
I have no idea.
always say fish.
No, I know exactly what it was. It's Tupac. I was listening to Dear Mama. I know exactly the song. It just stuck in my head for some reason. But it's like that. It's like a CEO question, right? It's like chess or checkers or like.
And the problem with those questions that I would ask is that not everybody plays chess, right? It didn't have a lot of time to do that. So it didn't qualify. So it was like, all right, what game did you play?
That did not qualify.
Right? Yeah, that did not qualify. So,
but no, that's I mean, to get to like some of the other things that are like in the future related to that and qualify is like right now we allow recruiters to ask the questions that they want to ask, but I think that there's an area of opportunity to like help them ask those same questions but in a better way, like, or maybe say like, hey, the wording of that question is a little there might be some bias in that the way that you're asking that question. Let you can restructure it this way, or that question is just straight up illegal, like don't ask this, like flag it.
Is that a thing? Is there
it's not currently a thing? But like that
what you're saying, it is a thing. Future,
maybe, it could be.
Any competitors out there, we do hold the rights to reserve.
Like there's already companies like Textio that do that in like different like written contexts, and so I think it's I always say easy. I'm the ideas guy, and then our engineering team has to go do it, but like it seems pretty easy. Like we should just plug into something and like do that
by
Friday.
Like,
like create templates and say like, hey, if you're interviewing for this role, like here's the right here's questions that you should consider
interview
using.
templates.
Stuff like that. And so like the IO, like again, the IO psychology of it all, like if you're trying to have a certain outcome, what are the inputs to that, and like, how do we structure that for you?
So for decision makers out there, how do they connect with you, with Qualifi? What's the process? So it's Qualify with an I.
Qualify with an I .hr.
Two I's. Qualify with two I's.
All I's. All I's.
So that you can really see what you're doing. Like that?
That's
the marketing genius right there.
Qualify.hr.
Okay, I did notice that. So it's Qualify, I in the end, with and then .hr.
.hr.
You can see it on the screen right now.
Sweet.
Boom. It's really easy. Like just come check out what we have online. You can also connect, with me and the team on LinkedIn. I always say my name is, I think I'm one of one in the world. So Darrian Mikell should bring you right to me.
That's nice to know.
That's what, weird spellings get you. So
that's how Qatar is. She's like, she's the only Qatar McCarty in the world. She's not the waterbender.
I know. I grew up watching Avatar. So I'm disappointed with all the I haven't watched the new Netflix one, but
they're just throwing stuff out.
The
cartoon feels like that with all the remakes, man. They're just throwing more and more stuff out.
Nothing new creative, but But anyway, LinkedIn, connect with us. We're trying, like I said, we're to get more entertaining content, more valuable content as well out there. And so hopefully you find something that's interesting to you beyond what we do from a product standpoint. But if you are interested in the product, there's places to sign up for a demo and see like the full scope of what we do.
And your podcast, is it on Spotify or where people
anywhere where you listen to podcasts? It's Future at Work @ in the middle.
Future at Work.
Future at Work, the @ in the middle. And so I think you can search it either way though. But
Yeah, we'll throw it in the chat as well. I'll work on that
throw
as well.
it all there.
We'll throw it in the chat. Final question.
Yeah, let's hear it.
How do you bring your soul to work?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We put it on the wall just for you.
Yeah, I think I've been doing this more and more. I think for me, bringing all of who I am to the different situations and settings, like this is going to seem like very minor, but like me with my hair braided, like is relatively new. I've only been doing this for like a few months, but like I had like hesitancy.
Clean, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I had hesitancy, you know, like even doing this because like I have to like be in sales calls, interact with investors. And I was like, what would they think? But it's like also like, you know, honestly, if they think anything negative, like we probably don't want to work with them anyway. That's what, you know, folks on my team reminded me of as I was talking about like stuff I want to do with my like, and that's just hair, but like beyond that,
it is because it speaks to something a lot,
like
a lot deeper than hair.
Yeah, like just who like trying to live out who I am. That includes, you know, me as a person, like my faith, being able to share that more openly, and yeah, not being afraid to like step into any situation, any setting, and feel like I mean, there's always like the code switching that has, you know, that happens, but but still being, you know, who I am and trying to share that with other folks
as fully you as you choose to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can't let everybody know everything.
Yeah, not everything.
Not everything. This is awesome. Thanks, sir.
You know, so.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming over.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see you again.
We set it up different. I think we're gonna
just for you.
This.
Okay. Oh, this is
we usually have some cheers, some big old fluffy cheers, and two guys in the big couch side.
You bring your guests the same, like you have people sit on the same side with you. It's not opposition.
We're all in this.
A seat at the table, man.
Yeah. So again, thank you all for joining us today, and reach out to Darrian and the team at qualifi.hr. And make sure you're hiring and screening for the right people, yo.
Yeah.
Because if not, I mean, listen, you don't want to hire everybody.
Yeah. You're not for everybody.
Yeah, you
are for the right body.
Yeah. I always used to say that in the church. We're for everybody. We're for anybody, but not for everybody.
Yeah.
Facts.
That's good.
Yeah. Thanks, man. All right. Well, peace out. We'll see you back next week on. Actually, we're going to say this.
You got to say this together.
Right. We're going to say champion your culture together, right? We'll see you back next week on Champion Your
Culture.
Thank you for tuning in to Champion Your Culture. We hope today's episode has sparked new ideas and inspiration for your journey in leadership and cultural development.
Building a culture good is a collective effort. If you found value in conversations today, please subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on your favorite platform and share this episode with your friends and colleagues.
Your support helps us reach more people and spread the message of impactful leadership and positive cultural change. Don't forget to visit cultureofgood.com to explore how you can become a certified culture champion.
Every week, we're here to bring you insights and strategies that matter. So join us again for more empowering discussions. Let's continue to champion a culture of purpose and passion together.
Until next time, keep leading with heart and let's make a positive difference in the world. And we'll see you next week on Champion Your Culture.